So if you see there's even a chance that someday you might want to work at a district, I would certainly say take the time to network. There's a reason they're there. Of course, they're looking for some, if they have an immediate hiring need, they're hoping to find someone to fill that need. But that doesn't mean that you can't make contacts with people, introduce yourself, because you honestly, like we tell people, you never know when you're going to need someone. and this is kind of the perfect opportunity. So I would say, don't go talk to every single one, or especially one that you're like really not interested. But even if you're remotely interested, I would definitely consider it worth your time. And I imagine, Erica, you would agree with me on that.
Yeah, and I actually have a little part of the presentation about that. But one of the things I really want to encourage you guys to do is keep an open mind, because first of all, you never know where connections are going to lead for you. School districts talk to each other. So you might find that leads to another connection, or they know of a position. The other thing is, you really want to make sure you're keeping an open mind, because who knows, maybe you get this fabulous offer and maybe it's not necessarily right in Mount Pleasant where you're wanting to be or in this area, but it's a fabulous offer and a great time for you to take a chance and go to a school district that maybe you're not as familiar with. So I would just encourage you guys to really keep an open mind. If nothing else, it's helping you speak one-on-one with employers and the school districts themselves, and just kind of get all those nerves out. So. Oh, we can't hear you.
Thank you. Do you
Sorry
have the
for all the
ability to
technical
share your
issues.
screen? You're fine. Look at that. We're not the most tech savvy, but we're making it work. Do you have the ability to share your screen again?
I do. Yep. I'm going to go into it right now.
Go ahead and fire that up. But thank you, Rachel, for asking some questions. And I imagine you're not the only one that feels that way. And I think that's also what's great about situations like this. Like, this should be casual, and know that you're not alone. Feelings of anxiety and stress, and I mean, we all, according to the survey, we're all looking for a job. So you're all in the same boat. So don't be afraid to ask those questions.
Absolutely. So picking up where I left off, I apologize for that. Like Shelby said, we are not the most tech savvy people here, but we are trying our best here. So just going through, the first thing I really want to cover is the platform, right? Because I think that's kind of where all of you had questions. I know there was questions here and there about resources and things like that, and we'll go into that more, but I want to take you step by step through the process of the fair and how to do your research. So for the purpose of this fair, we're using Career Eco. They are so MSU is hosting the fair with all the Michigan publics. So you'll be able to see all the universities attending, as well as all the school districts attending once you go into register. Okay. So when you register, and you probably already, most of you, I'm pretty sure already have, but just to kind of walk you through this, you want to make sure you're creating an account, you're completing your profile, and I'm going to go through steps on the profile in particular to make sure you're really marketing yourselves correctly virtually. You want to upload your resume. So definitely make sure that you're getting that all squared away. If not, there's still a little bit of time where I can probably help you through some of the process. And then just make sure that you're registered and you're good to go for the day of. So this is the screen you're going to see when it's asking you to fill out your profile. So when you first register. Couple things you want to do here. First of all, make sure that all of your contact information is correct, because even before the fair, employers can reach out to you. They can send you messages, and we'll cover that a little bit. Definitely include your LinkedIn profile. I would start there, because what's nice about this software is it pulls things in from LinkedIn. So then you don't have to really fill everything out. It's going to pull little snips and pieces. But you really want to make sure that you have LinkedIn ready to go, because after the fair, that's going to be one of your best bets on ways to connect with those employers. Add your school information. You'll see CMU come up right away, and we'll take a look at that as well. And then also add some different pieces from your portfolio if you want to. I highly suggest doing that. So a couple different things I've seen, uploading some student work. You could upload different pictures of you in front of the classroom teaching or working one-on-one with a student. Just keep in mind those file sizes. So knowing that you might have to shrink some files in order to fit those in there. And then also make sure you're modifying your email preferences. So something really important about this program is that if you don't update that, it's not going to send you notifications. And if a school district sends you a message, it's not going to let you know that that message was sent. So you really want to make sure you're going into the email preferences and saying that you'll accept notifications. So that way you're just staying up to date on whatever those school districts are sending to you.
Hey, Erica, this might be a good time to pause, and I apologize. I had
Perfect.
a couple of people email me. Can you just
Yeah.
check the waiting room, make sure there's no one there?
Absolutely.
A few people were sent late invites. I just want to make sure no one's waiting on the outside. I think there would just have been a notification that came up. So if you're not seeing that, then we should be okay.
I am not seeing anybody else.
That's fine.
Okay,
Continue.
perfect.
Sorry.
You're fine. Okay, so let me. Okay, so on this screen, you guys are going to want to go through, add your information in here. So you're going to want to select your major. And I understand that that can be a little bit difficult for some concentrations and certifications. So the key here is if you're not finding your specific major or your specific certification, you can actually enter that in the box below where you're selecting your major. And then that's going to override that first box for you. So that's probably your best bet to make sure your major is accurate, because again, they're kind of just making this overall, so it's not necessarily going to be CMU specific. You'll also obviously want to select university. All of this information is going to show up in this top right corner, if you can see that profile section. So that's what employers are going to see. You really want to make sure that that's all correct. Okay. After you add that information, you're going to see all of that listed in the profile. You're going to want to go through work authorizations, and then at the bottom, you're going to see where you can actually input what certifications you will be anticipating. You know, not all of you necessarily have those certifications yet, so you can put the ones that you will be getting so that employers can search for you as well. Okay, so we talked a little bit about messages and employers being able to send you messages before the fair. So if you look in the top right corner here, there's a little messages section with, you'll see a 3. So that means you have 3 messages. That's pretty obvious from those districts. And it could be something as simple as, hey, apply before the fair. You know, some school districts want you to go through, apply beforehand. It could be, hey, I just wanted to reach out to you with some extra information. So just make sure you're keeping up with those messages to really show that you're keeping this professional approach to the fair. Okay, so before the fair, preparation is key. And it's key for on-campus fairs, it's key for virtual fairs alike. You really want to make sure you're going through and doing your research. So I'm going to walk you through here in the next couple slides on how you can go through, look at those school districts, and then seeing what they're hiring for. You really want to go through, check what school districts you want to apply to ahead of time. And you know, really the best approach is not to try to talk to every single person there. There's a lot of school districts, and I think Shelby touched on this a little bit when my computer went out. You really want to pinpoint, I think probably 5 to 10 is a good number, depending on, you know, how many districts you kind of want to aim for. But choose those school districts, do your research, see what teaching styles they have, see their values, their mission statements, and write all those things down and have a copy of things in front of you. Write down questions you have for each of those school districts in particular. You also want to make sure you're checking your background. So obviously I'm not in front of the seal. And if you really saw my background, I'm working out of my home office in my basement. So it's not the prettiest background. So we really want to make sure that we look professional on screen, right? So go through, you can really easily add backgrounds. And that's mainly if employers are requesting you do like a Zoom meeting with them afterwards. So they will reach out and do those type of things. You can search for CMU backgrounds. I have like a fancy New York apartment background, so you can do something like that. But just make sure it looks professional. And then plan out what you're gonna wear. I know a lot of us are probably wearing sweatpants and sweatshirts. Trust me, this is like my first day dressing up because I'm in front of all of you in a while. So make sure that the night before you're laying out your clothes, you're getting ready to dress professionally. And I do suggest wearing dress slacks. I think we've all seen the Zoom fails and the chat fails where people stand up and they have sweatpants on and a dress shirt. So just be really careful about all of those things. You want to also prepare your elevator pitch. So for those of you that I have presented to before, we talk about those elevator pitches, but really those consist of past, present, and future. So we want to talk a little bit about maybe where we're from, why we went into this teaching field. We want to talk about the present. So what your certification is in, how your student teaching is going, and then we're going to talk about the future. So what are your future goals? You also want to make sure you're keeping virtual copies, or digital copies, not virtual, digital copies of your documents. And that's really important because if an employer says, hey, can you just really quick send me a piece of work that you've done through student teaching, you have it on hand, you're ready to go. You're not searching through all your files. So just kind of keep a folder, maybe call it virtual teacher fair, and have all those documents ready to share with the employers. It's also a good idea if you're really interested in a school district to apply ahead of time. So that's kind of the same with an in-person fair, but a lot of times they like to know that you've already gone and applied, be able to look at the application. And then, like I said, stay open-minded. So we kind of already addressed this, but even if there's not school districts that you're super interested in or are directly located right around you, you never know where those connections are going to lead. So it's great to really keep an open mind when going to something like this. Okay, so some really important tips. First one is like probably the most important. Firefox and Chrome are the only browsers that support the Career Eco Chat. So you can still go into the program, but you can't use the chat function if you're not in Firefox and Chrome. So if you haven't done so already, download one of those and make sure that it's working for you. Also set a reminder. So I have a personal experience from today actually for this. A lot of us are very much so off of our regular schedules, right? We're not going out and getting ready to go out into the work world and the academic world. And so personally, my husband missed a meeting this morning at 8 o'clock because he just forgot and didn't set an alarm or set a reminder, which he's not the best with those kind of things anyways, but really make sure you're setting those reminders. Put one on your phone, put one in your Outlook calendar, wherever you can, just to remind yourself to be in the fair. Update your LinkedIn account. If you need help with this, feel free to reach out to me via email. I can send you back some suggestions. We can talk over Microsoft Teams, whatever works good for you, but really make sure that you have LinkedIn good and ready to go. And then charge your device. So a couple presentations ago, I've been doing lots of presentations from home, and a few presentations ago, I forgot to plug my computer in. And all of a sudden, in the middle of my presentation, it said, your computer will shut down in like 10 seconds, right? So I had 10 seconds to grab my charger, plug my computer in, all while being on screen. So make sure you're charging those devices and you have them good and ready to go. Any questions so far? Are we doing okay?
Sorry, someone's putting away groceries here, but no, there's no questions so far.
Okay, perfect. All right, so a couple things here. The day or before the fair, I'm sorry, not the day before. Before the fair, so you should be starting this right now. Go into the Career Echo site, go to event details. You can see that's highlighted at the bottom there, and that's going to give you all of this information that I'm about to show you. You'll also see to the right side all of the participating institutions. So a lot of universities coming, but that just kind of gives you a good idea of who all will be there. So once you click on that, what it's going to do is bring up all the school districts that are attending. It's going to give you the degrees that they're recruiting for and also the areas they're recruiting for. So this is how you can go through, you can use the filters and really find those school districts that are hiring for what you're looking for. One tip I would give you is if you're really interested in a school district, or even if you just want to learn a little bit more about them, click on the interest box next to their name, because that indicates that you want to learn more from them, and then they'll start sending you those messages and the information.
And another thing I would add, Erica, if that's okay, sorry to interject,
No, go
is
for it.
that if there is a particular school district that you're really interested in, and maybe your major or specialization isn't listed, definitely still worth reaching out. Because just because there isn't something available now doesn't mean there won't be later. And also, things are really fluid for school districts right now for a number of reasons, which I know we're all aware of. So if there are a few that you are like really wanting to get into whatever school district, don't let your specialization or your major not being there deter you from reaching out to them. And you can even lead with something, like, I know that, you're acknowledging you're not looking to waste their time. You notice that your major isn't listed, but you're really interested in the school district. I would highly recommend that.
Absolutely. And for those of you who I haven't presented in front of before, my husband is a special education teacher in the Mount Pleasant School District. And so he is always giving me pointers about how to best serve you guys. And one of the things that he always says is, schools aren't necessarily going to list everything because a lot of their hiring is internal or recommendations they're getting to. So definitely follow what Shelby was saying there and reach out regardless if it looks like they have something particularly for the area you're in. Okay. Oh, and one other note I wanted to make about this as well is that each of the schools also sets up their own chat schedule. So when I went through it, looked like most of them are available the entire duration, so the 9 to 5. But just make sure that you're checking this ahead of time to see when those school districts will be available. Okay, so then when we go in here, we can also look at a little bit more details when we click on the specific school. So we can see job postings again, chat times, degrees they're recruiting for, website and contact information. This is your chance to explore. So definitely go to their websites, look at what teaching styles they look for, look at really neat things the school district is doing in the community. Just make sure you're doing your research ahead of time, and websites are a great place to find all of that information. Okay, so day of the fair. First thing I have on here is stand if possible, and I know that that sounds ridiculous, but if you're able to prop up your computer to where you're standing, there is evidence that it actually makes you a lot more confident when you're speaking with someone, whether it be through a virtual interview or a virtual fair. So if you're able to stand, that is probably the best approach. That being said, I'm not standing because my monitor is large and I can't prop it up with books. So if you can't stand, that's not a big deal either. It just, like I said, it helps with feeling more confident, and it also makes the angle a lot better for you when you're looking at the camera lens. And on that same note, try to look at the lens and not the screen. So that is a very hard thing to do for any of you who have been, meeting with friends or talking over Zoom or any chat functions. You really want to try to make sure you're focusing your eyes towards the lens so it looks like you're looking at the employer. Sticky notes are a great way to have notes. So I know I heard another school or a university saying this, but they suggested to have their students post sticky notes out on their monitor of different questions they want to ask or different schools they want to reach out to. It's just an easy way to keep things organized. You can color code them. Again, dress professionally. So make sure you're not wearing sweatpants and you're dressing like you would if you were going to an actual in-person fair. Silence your cell phone and notifications. I would say just basically turn off everything else on your computer and silence your phone so there's no distractions. You don't want the dinging of your email or something else going off in the background while you're speaking with an employer. And then check your Wi-Fi, which we all have problems with. Obviously, we're all adjusting to this new way of life and of applying and going to fairs. So employers understand technical difficulties, but try to be as prepared as possible. You know, go in, make sure internet's working great. Even try to run a program that might use a lot of internet so you can make sure that your internet's functioning very well. Okay, so for communication, you really want to reach out to the school districts and not wait for them to reach out to you. So if you're kind of just going into the fair and waiting for an invite to a personal chat or waiting for them to send you a message, it might not happen. You want to be the one to really initiate, just like you would in an in-person fair. The other thing with this software program is that you can join 3 chats at a time. That being said, be careful. So I have done a similar program before for a fair, and it can get kind of hectic if you have 3 chats and you're trying to kind of toggle between all of them. So yes, you can be in 3, but you have quite a bit of time during the fair, so you might want to try to stick to 1 at a time. I also want to just make sure you guys know some school districts, they're all kind of doing different formats. So some are doing group chats, some are doing one-on-one, some might collect resumes and then reach out, some might interview you right on the spot. So just keep an open mind with reaching out to these employers and how they're responding to you. You know, a lot of them are currently not working at their buildings, so they might not necessarily be able to reach out to you right away. It is a long duration of the fair. They could be eating lunch, so you just want to make sure that you're kind of giving them that chance too. So give them a little bit to respond to you. And then keep track of your chat interactions and your requests. So, you know, the goal is after this fair to be able to have some contacts and reach out. So you really want to make sure you're keeping track of who you talk to and who requested to talk to you as well. Okay.
Erica, sorry, we have a question. So let's
good.
answer this now while it's here. This is from Emily.
Okay.
And Emily wonders what you should do if you've already had an interview with a district that is there. I'm going to give my 2 cents, and then Erica, I'd love for you to pop in as well.
Perfect.
So I think I would say reach out to them, certainly. This could be a good touch point. I think it definitely depends on if you've heard back from them or not. So let's say maybe you applied, Emily, and you didn't get the position. Certainly could still be a way to circle back with them, especially if it's a district you're really interested in and maybe you were upset that you didn't get anything. If you have had an interview and you haven't heard yet, could also be a good touch point to see who's there. You know, you can kind of reiterate your interview experience, how well it went, because I'm sure it went well, and that you are interested in the position and can't wait to hear, you know, more. That would be my advice, Erica. I don't know if you have anything different.
No, I agree with everything you said. I think, you know, talk to them. I would kind of just talk to them regardless, but yes, if you didn't get a position, maybe there's positions that are still available and they, you know, haven't seen your name or your face in a while, and you going to talk to them kind of sparked their interest again. So I would say reach out, definitely.
Sorry, my dad was hammering, so I didn't want to.
Oh, you're fine.
I didn't want to come on the audio because you would hear it. But my interview is Friday with the district, so I don't know if I'll hear back or not before Monday.
Yeah. So my guess would be that you wouldn't hear back yet. Typically it takes them a little while to go through all the applicants, to interview everyone. So I would probably go in and talk to them and just let them know that you're excited about the position. You were really fortunate that you got to interview with them, and just touch base with them again.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Shelby, did you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Okay. So day of the fair, again, it says depending on the event. I know that this event in particular is 3 chats at a time. So like I said, you can do that, but be careful. You can join the chats by clicking those join chat buttons, pretty self-explanatory. And then it will tell you, it'll bring up a waiting room and let you know who's in the room. We'll see all of those things in just a few minutes here. You also want to make sure that you are making yourself online or available at the top there. So those chat icons are going to pop up. If you want to exit those, you just hit the X there. Again, just little things, but something to help you along the way. So when you do go into a chat, so you request to join now, you're allowed into the chat, you're going to see on the left-hand side the organization representative and then who else is in the room with you. So for confidentiality reasons, you're not going to see people's full names. You will see the recruiter's full name, but not the other candidates. So what I would do, first thing you do, write down the school district name, write down the representative that's there, any contact information they have listed, because you want to be able to reach out afterwards. So it's really important that you're keeping track of who you spoke with. Couple other things, that bottom chat function there, messages are going to show to everyone, so be careful. You can be invited to a one-on-one chat, and that's different. So you'll see that main chat room function at the top there. When you're in this this screen, you want to make sure that anything you're communicating in that box really applies to everyone, right? And with the group chats, you know, if you do start engaging in a group chat, what I would suggest is really trying to bring others into the conversation. So I talk a little bit about this when we're doing face-to-face networking, but they're not necessarily looking for the person that is typing constantly and trying to just spend all their time with them. They're looking for the person that's engaging everyone in conversation. So I would try to kind of follow that same format here. Okay, so after
hey, Erica, I have a question.
Yeah.
And this is actually a question from me.
Yeah.
So will the students have access to go back in and reread the chat? So let's say the fair ends Monday, Tuesday, you've decompressed, you want to go back in. Of course, I also agree 100% on actual, you know, taking physical notes.
Yep.
They can go back in and see chats and who they talk to though, correct?
Yes. As far as I know, afterwards, they can download those. That's not something I can say with 100%, but I'm almost positive they can. Yes.
And I will make a note here that we'll look into that
Okay.
and let you guys know. We can send that out by email in a recap. So
absolutely.
Thank you, Erica.
Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to note too before I go to the next slide here, notice too that they have all of their social media linked here. Well, some of them will, but that's a great opportunity to connect with them. So make sure you're also doing that when you're in this screen too. Okay, so after the fair, first thing is know what your next steps are. So if they reached out to you, did a one-on-one chat, and they want to interview with you, make sure you know clearly what the next steps with them are, how to get into that interview, when they're going to follow up with you, things like that. And if you don't know, it's okay to ask. You know, you don't want to say, well, when, you know, what exact day, what exact time. They might not know those details, but you just want to make sure that you know what the next step is. Like I've been saying kind of throughout, get that contact information for the post-fair follow-up. So ideally you want to send a thank you to the employers that you've spoke with, especially those who might have done like an on-the-spot interview. You definitely want to send a thank you to them. So I would go through, look at all the people you spoke with and send that email out, you know, after the fair or even the next day. And then apply if you haven't already. So maybe you find a school district that you didn't necessarily research ahead of time, but you were kind of intrigued and wanted to go talk to them a little bit, right? So make sure you're going in and you're applying afterwards if you hadn't already. Also, make sure you're following up with requests. So employers might ask you for samples of your work. Maybe they ask for recommendation letters. There's multiple things that they could ask for. So make sure you're taking note of what you need to send to who. And then make sure you're also connecting on LinkedIn. That's really huge. From what I have heard, that's probably one of your best bets of how to reach out to the employer after the fair.
Erica, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in here for just a second. One other thing to know, and I think we did talk about it earlier, but take this weekend, and I know we're all going through a lot right now, but if you have a few hours this weekend, really prepare and apply. So there is a huge benefit, we know, both in virtual fairs and in in-person fairs, if you can have applied beforehand. It's easier for them because oftentimes they'll have access to this information. So you can quite clearly articulate, you know, who you are, what you studied, and that you applied for this position, and not, oh, I will be applying. So that is going to be impossible to apply to a ton, and I'm not telling you to do that. But if there are one or two in particular that you're interested in and that you really hope to talk to at the fair, applying ahead of time not only will benefit you because your application's already done, but it really shows them that you're interested. So anything
Absolutely.
you can do ahead of time would definitely be helpful.
What if like none of their applications are out, or they don't have any openings on their website?
That's a good point. Erica, can we see any of that in Career Eco?
So we can see what positions they're hiring for, but we can't see necessarily applications. You can see that if you go to the website directly. I would say if they don't have positions, obviously you can't really apply ahead of time, but I would just wait till the fair because, you know, everyone's going to be in that same boat with that same school district. So, waiting till the fair if they don't necessarily have an application out there and just saying, hey, I noticed you didn't have an application, but I'm really interested in following up with you and applying to this district. I think that's probably your best approach.
Yeah, and again, to your point, Erica, it's just articulating that interest and that you went above and beyond. Like you looked, you know, I went to your website and I didn't see that anything was available. That to me says you're interested, you know, you're doing your research and that you wanted to apply. We just as a district didn't get around to getting the application up yet. So I would certainly mention that in the chat.
Okay.
Good question.
And now it's time for questions. So whoever has questions, feel free. You can put them in the chat or you can also do them through audio, whatever works best.
I actually had one more, sorry.
Yeah. No, don't be sorry. That's what this is for.
So obviously like a big question is like, what are the district's plans for when school returns, or like when do they feel like they will go back to school? Is that an appropriate question to ask right now, or do you think a lot of districts, I mean, some may not even know?
Yeah, so I think a lot of them don't really know. We're all kind of in that uncertainty of what's going to reopen as far as through the state, which obviously the schools don't have control over. So I think you could ask some questions related to that and kind of address some things, but I don't necessarily think they're going to be able to give you exact plans.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I just have noticed like some schools are talking about doing like a balance calendar to fill in a little bit what they've missed. Or
yeah. So I've heard a lot of varying things.
Yeah.
I have heard the balance thing. I've also heard of school districts kind of spending that first month on the previous grade level. I've heard a lot of different things, but I don't think any of them are certain, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're going to get that from a lot of school districts that they just don't know yet.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would even kind of to go on that further, you know, you could ask, you know, how is your school district, you know, handling this? I imagine it's been difficult for all of you. You know, to show that level of empathy is also something that I think can really go far for you in the interview process. I also think it is totally fair if you do get an interview, which I'm sure all of you will, to ask, you know, as you're applying, like, do you see anything changing? You know, do you anticipate this position I'm applying for, you know, will be seen through? do you expect any changes? Because you also have to look out for yourself. And there are a lot of, things happening right now. I would assume if they are attending the fair tomorrow and they are looking to hire, they are pretty confident in that. But that doesn't mean that you can't still ask. And I would highly recommend that one, and don't lead with that, right, necessarily, but
Right.
as you're going through the interview and they ask if you have questions and you ask about, the interview process moving forward,
Mhm.
what are your plans? Just to solidify and say, I'm really interested in this and I really hope, nothing would be changing. It is kind of a way to ask a similar question. So
Right.
I am going to read here a question from Alyssa, Erica, because I know you can't see this.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for December graduates? They're not currently eligible for employment, obviously, and can't apply for current positions. How should that conversation look?
Yeah. So I definitely highly encourage you guys still go to the fair for sure. Networking can never hurt you. I think being able to show your face, your name multiple times to someone recruiting or school districts, that's only going to keep you in their mind. So I, regardless, would attend. I would go to multiple fairs if you can, because now is the time to start. Even if you can't technically apply until December, you don't have your certifications, regardless, you want to start making those connections.
One other thing to add to that point too, that is a great question to ask the district or districts. So you can, explicitly say, hey, I obviously cannot be applying for this position now, would love to work with your district eventually. Is there a particular window in which I should be looking to apply? When do you historically have positions open? Because they could also know of things moving down the pipe, if there's retirements, whatever. So that is a good chat conversation to have. I would not be shy to ask, hey, I'm a December grad, when should I be looking? Or is it worth me applying now? It honestly could, we just don't know, and you won't know unless you ask. So
Absolutely.
I have two questions. My first one being, when we enter one of those chat rooms, should we have like a blanket introduction that we should be putting out there, or?
Yeah, so that's your elevator pitch. So that's kind of where you want to lead that 30 to 60 seconds about yourself. It's a little different in these virtual fairs because you are typing a lot of things out. So, obviously you might not have like a huge thing written out, but I would have a little something prepared with just your name, your certifications, why you're interested in their school district, and that way you can just kind of have those things on hand to paste into your chats.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then so there's a district going that I'm really interested in.
Okay.
And they only have one job posting right now for special ed. And I haven't applied yet because I don't have a letter of recommendation from my special ed host teacher.
Okay.
Should I be applying for that ahead of this despite?
Yeah, I would still apply. And then when you get that recommendation letter, that's something that if you get it before the fair, you could upload it into the documents. Or, you could send it directly to the school district with that contact information that they're listing. But yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a question real quick, and I know it's situational, but for instance, my school district that I'm student teaching at, they actually pulled their job postings due to budget cuts.
Okay.
So they are no longer able to fill the two openings they have. Do you believe that there are any chances that any of the school districts that will be part of the fair might have to do that due to this ever so changing situation we're all in?
So I think that's kind of where what Shelby said comes into play. You really have to look out for yourself as well. So asking those questions is not out of line, just kind of making sure, asking about how they're handling the pandemic and everything. Could it happen? It could. But we're hopeful that it won't. And, having that communication open with the employer is how you kind of make sure that you're staying on top of things.
Yeah, and I think, right, like as much as Erica and I would like to say, oh yeah, I probably won't. You know, we just don't know. And I think that's why the fact that you guys are here, that you're going to be attending the fair, you know, we talk about the value of networking, the value of kind of broadening the folks you know, the people that know you, because that's the most important part, right? That is certainly helpful and won't hurt you. So let's say, you know, you get an interview at a place you're super excited about and a place that you're kind of even as you progress through, I would certainly take every interview opportunity. You know, you just don't know. And again, I have belief that if they are attending, if they're putting themselves out there, there is a need and they anticipate that need being filled. But that doesn't mean that if you get one interview, assume that everything is fine. You know, certainly explore all of your options, because until you ask and until you sign, you never know really what's going to happen.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great questions, you guys. Keep them coming.
There are no other questions in the chat right now, but we'll give it another.
I'm going to bring up
minute or
to
two.
my screen with my email address so you guys have that contact information to write down.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, as far as this weekend goes, prep, right? We talked about applying if we can, but get into the system. So if you have not been in there yet, great chance to do so. Erica and I are kind of splitting shifts. She'll be in the majority of the fair on Monday. I wanted to make sure that we mentioned that. So look for her. Erica, I'll have you explain in a second where they go, because I don't know. But so we'll be there. So if you have questions, or again, you're kind of nervous or whatever, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to us. But I would say get in the system, because if you can do that Saturday and Sunday, you know, if you run into questions or issues, email Erica or but Erica's email is here and you have mine from earlier. And then we'll check that over the weekend and even first thing Monday. So we'll get back to you, you know, first thing Monday morning and make sure you're situated. But I'd rather, you know, it'd be much better for you to do that before Monday.
Definitely. Yeah. And they're putting, so there'll be a room, like a help chat kind of thing. And they're putting us in there with our school name next to us. So you should be able to find us fairly easily. But if for some reason you're in the fair and you have a question and you're just not seeing me, feel free to send me an email too, because I'll be keeping that up as well.
All right. I mean, that's it. So why don't we do this? Erica and I will stay on for the last 9 minutes or so here. Feel free to drop out of the Zoom if you have no other questions, but make sure to write down Erica's email address. And again, you have mine from earlier, though Erica is your expert. So feel free to reach out. Otherwise, you can hang in here, ask us a question. If you'd prefer to do it a little bit more privately, that's totally fine. But thanks everybody for hopping on. It was great to see some of you and hear from some of you. And good luck on Monday if I don't talk to you
Absolutely.
then. You guys are welcome. We're seeing thank yous come through the chat, Erica. So.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, hopefully you guys feel a little more confident, especially with the software program. But, you know, thank you so much for joining today. I love being able to see all these faces that I've already worked with via email, appointments, and through your presentations as well. So thank you all for being here.